Should Donald Trump be disqualified from running for president for his attempts to overturn the 2020 election? Michigan says no. State Supreme Court today upheld a lower court ruling that keeps Trump on the Republican primary ballot there. It's a true battleground state that was integral to Trump's victory in 2016 and to his loss in 2020. The ruling comes 2 weeks after Colorado State Supreme Court rocked the political world by tossing Trump off that state's ballot, a ruling that Trump is expected to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. Colorado and Michigan were just 2 of the 16 states considering challenges to Trump's candidacy under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution and its so-called insurrection clause. Now, the text of the Constitution seems pretty clear here, but it's being interpreted in 16 states with 16 sets of election laws. It's all unfolding in a piecemeal and, frankly, chaotic way. But if you're hoping our last few institutional guardrails will prevent Donald Trump from regaining power, it's starting to look like those legal challenges are not the guardrails we're looking for. Joining me now is Ron Fine, legal director of Free Speech for People, which is the group that filed the challenge to Trump in Michigan and multiple other states. Ron, thank you so much for what you're doing and joining us here this evening. I want to start with this. So, Semaphore wrote about you back in September. Meet the people who think Trump can be disqualified for running for president. You say we would accept a ruling from the Supreme Court, Fine told Semaphore. We're not sure that Trump would. I think that sort of crystallizes what motivates your organization, right? You don't believe that Trump would respect the rule of law if in any shape, way, or form he is not put back in the White House in 2024, correct?
Well, that's exactly right, Jason. And he demonstrated that he doesn't respect the rule of law at the end of 2020 and in the beginning of January 2021, culminating on January 6th, when he invited a violent horde to swamp the Capitol, to attack it, and where they nearly assassinated the vice president and the Speaker of the House. They obstructed Congress, and they succeeded for the first time in history of doing something that the Confederacy never even did, which was preventing the peaceful transfer of power. So no, Donald Trump doesn't accept rulings from courts, and that's part of what makes him so dangerous.
So your organization has filed, not just in Michigan, but you have filed to get some pro-insurrection congressional candidates off the ballot, including Marjorie Taylor Greene. You haven't been successful yet. Do you think that this is a shot across the bow? Do you think that this may be a chilling effect on insurrectionists? What do you think is the impact of trying and losing thus far in your attempts to knock insurrectionists off the ballot?
Well, let me be clear about, for example, what the Michigan court just did the other day. The Michigan court said, it did not say, rather, that Donald Trump didn't engage in insurrection. It did not say that the 14th Amendment doesn't apply to him. It did not say that Michigan or other states can't decide whether he is disqualified under the 14th Amendment. All the Michigan court said was that we need to refile that challenge after the primary. And that's similar to what happened in Minnesota. And this is something that voting rights lawyers are very used to. Courts telling you that either you're filing too soon or too late. In this case, we erred on the side of filing early before the primary. Now the Michigan court is saying that we have to refile after the primary. But of course, by the time that happens, we have challenges in other states pending right now before the Oregon Supreme Court, and we will be filing more. So like an investor who spreads his bets, we have not put all of our eggs in one basket. And although the Michigan court got it wrong by saying that the challenge can't be filed before the primary, we can return to Michigan after the primary, and we'll be ready to refile.
Ron, I want to ask you sort of a larger philosophical question. I think you're probably the perfect person to answer this. For years, the smart talking head people in Washington, D.C. have been telling us, well, we've got guardrails in this country. We've got guardrails to prevent these sorts of things from happening. The way I'm looking at the country right now, the guardrails have failed. They have failed. This was a federal official who attempted a violent overthrow of the government, and our federal laws don't seem to be doing it. I'm not a lawyer, but if I had a DUI, I'm disqualified for ever working for Uber again. I don't understand how if you attempted an insurrection, you can't just be disqualified. Do you feel that the fact that your organization has to go state by state for this challenge. Do you feel that that's a failing of our federal guardrails, that it falls to you and an active group of citizens to try and save our country?
It shouldn't need to fall to us. First, the institution that should have taken care of this in the first place was Congress, because he was impeached shortly after January 6th. And of course, that was his second impeachment. A majority of the Senate voted to convict him, but you need a two-thirds supermajority, and that fell a little bit short. Senator Mitt Romney has recently revealed that many of the Republican senators who voted not to convict him at that time did so because they feared for their own physical safety, because they understood that he and his supporters would threaten them and their families. And so the Senate failed in its duty. The Department of Justice took too long to initiate criminal prosecutions and investigations. And it should not fall to a small democracy-oriented nonprofit advocacy group to need to file separate litigation in multiple states. But that's where we are. And because other institutions have failed us, that's why we at Free Speech for People will continue filing these actions in state after state. And we hope to be able to present a case at trial and demonstrate, as of course was done in Colorado, that Donald Trump engaged in insurrection and is disqualified under the U.S. Constitution.
Ron Fine, thank you so much for the work you're doing. You literally are on the front lines of saving our democracy. Thanks so much for joining us this evening.